years.
Okay. All right. So people first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was your original dream when you studied and you were a linguist? What was the first thing you wanted to do?
Well, I grew up in a very deprived part of North London, a place called Tottenham, and I lived on the 11th floor of an apartment block. And so we didn't have a lot of money. And so I think my dream was just to break away from that world and to have more, not necessarily, wealthy commercial things, but to be able to see the world. We couldn't even afford the books. We used to go to this swap shop and
Okay.
swap sort of books and everything. So, in the books you read of all these wonderful things that are happening. So my dream then was to get out there and sample some of that, and to kind of, I had a lot of love and so on, but I wanted to break away and see more.
Yeah. Okay. And then you're very big in AI. I was looking on your LinkedIn. So how did you get there? What interested you in AI?
Yeah, so I'm not a technologist per se. I'm not teaching people in my talks and in my workshops to code. I'm teaching them how to apply AI and machine learning to their business. And I've been in marketing and business for 30 years, and you have to keep up. And so I've been keeping up for 15 years, and I was ahead of the game with digital, and then everyone else caught up. And so I saw that, this was 5 or so years ago, I saw that artificial intelligence was the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got involved and I wrote white papers and I learned and did courses. And then I wrote my first book, which was published, this one. It was published in, you can't see that with the background, I don't think properly, but it was published in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's opened a lot of doors. It's case studies from brilliant academics, fantastic brands, tech disruptors. And I've got another book coming out in the spring. So honestly, it's my attempt to keep reinvigorating, to keep learning and staying ahead of the pack. And it's such a cool technology. So, it doesn't matter if you're like me, you're 54, or if you're 24, you can stay very current and ahead.
What is the name of your second book, your book that's coming out?
It's really all about using AI. I've forgotten the exact title. We're just finalizing that, but it's about using AI, AI strategy for marketing, sales, and CX.
Okay.
So the first one was using AI in marketing. This is about AI strategy for marketing, sales, and customer experience.
Cool. At what point did you become a public speaker in your career?
Oh, it's funny actually. I was head girl at my school and I gave some talks there. And I remember people coming up to me then saying, "Oh, you're good at this. You should go into it." But properly, as a proper public speaker, only in the last sort of 8 or 9 years. But
Okay.
I've been doing it informally forever.
Yeah.
But as a professional, yes, for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, and I absolutely love it.
How did it happen?
The book, really. I think the first book and my TEDx talk. So before the book, I was doing TEDx talks and I got invited to speak. So I think the social media got me my voice heard. The speaker engagements, then the more informal ones, were a platform for people to hear me. And then I got my first agents in the UK and Helsinki and in other parts of the world.
Okay, so my speaker, they probably found you after the book and after you'd spoken. Did they?
Yeah, I think the book gives you that extra credibility. It gives you that IP, that intellectual
Yeah.
property. So I think my speaker was probably the time of the book. Yeah.
Would that be your piece of advice for people who would like to be a public speaker, like to have intellectual property?
I
Something.
think so. Not necessarily a book, because a published book can take a year or more.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to stand for something. You've got to be really passionate about something. You've got to demonstrate that. And I think the IP, and it might be a workbook, it might be a podcast, it might be something that you've gathered. So yes, that would be certainly one good piece of advice, is to have some IP.
Okay. It's still quite a leap from a linguist to into AI.
It is, I suppose, but it's really, if you think about it, it's when you're a linguist, you're learning French and German literature as well as language, and I've always been a good writer. So actually, think of AI, think of me as an author of a book on AI.
Mhm.
I am not I am not teaching people the coding part. So
Yeah.
I've written books and I'm educating people about how to apply it. And I've been in tech all my career. So technology, public relations, and technology marketing for Alcatel, Huawei, BT, Cisco, that they've been my so technology has been my kind of bread and butter for 30 years.
Okay, I understand that. You've consulted for Virgin Oil, wasn't it? Also.
Virgin, Shell
So-
Oil,
Yep.
and Virgin, absolutely. Yeah, all
How,
different sectors actually, all sectors. Yeah.
I'm curious about Virgin. How was it consulting with them?
Brilliant. I did actually work with Richard Branson in
Who's
Central.
in space now?
Incredible, isn't it? Just incredible to see the footage of him. He was cool. Yeah, we had a launch of a new Virgin company, a small company in the IT world, and we had the original. We had a telephone box kind of brought into it, and that was where he made his first call and got started as Virgin, and did a big press launch with him. And yeah, he was charming. Yeah, it was
Cool.
good experience.
So, what has it been like speaking on the international circuit? Like, what's been your, I don't know, favorite or most shocking experiences with culture, diversity?
So of course 2 years of it virtual, but prior to that, I was in Dubai, I was in China. I've been around most of the world. I think what's shocking is when you realize that actually we've got to be careful that we're not being fed misinformation, because the reality is you go around the world and you meet wonderful people who actually seem very liberated and very happy. Now, I'm not saying there aren't problems and there's geopolitics happening, but I've been pleasantly reassured when I've been in Moscow and I've been in Shanghai that, these people are just like us. And so
Mm-hmm.
kind of push the politics aside, and it's reassuring to meet wonderful families, wonderful people who open up their homes to you and so on. So, you know, putting aside the cultural and political pieces, um, yeah, I love it. I love, I took my mum as a chaperone to China,
Cool.
and seeing all of the Chinese brides in their uh, English or Western bridal gowns lying on the beach, and they came up to us, they were touching our hair and asking for signatures and autographs and so on, because
Cute.
we were in a kind of part of the East Coast where they don't see many sort of international visitors there. So yeah, it's just been charming. It's been wonderful to make friends with people all around the world, and just share my experiences and learn from them as well.
And how have you adapted your keynote presentations for the cultural, like, with the different cultures?
That's a very important point, because there's different morals, there's different, as you say, cultural, whether it's to do with women, whether it's to do with how open they are about issues of a sexual nature, the look and feel and the appropriate dress, for example, in the Middle East. So you tailor it, you get a briefing, you understand what's acceptable, you do your own research, and every single time, I'm tuning in to the demographic, to the gender, to the age, to the how experienced they are. Do they understand what AI is? Do we want to get into the detail of how AI is reshaping the world of marketing and PR? So yeah, every single time, even in the UK, up and down the UK, it's different too. Different regions, different demographics, and so on. So every single time, it's tailored to their needs.
Absolutely. What's been your favorite, most memorable speech?
Oh, do you know, honestly, not just because I'm sitting here, but the one in Helsinki was the first time I felt like I was looked after, and it was very special, because
Oh,
it's the only time I've been in a major, I don't know what you call it, like a town hall, like a big opera. It's like an opera house, I think, isn't it?
yeah, probably.
And we had hair and makeup and a studio, and I felt like a bit of a rock star. So that was special, because you with a big crowd in a really cool auditorium, and looked after like a like an international speaker. That was fantastic.
Okay. So you haven't, it hasn't been the same all over where you travel, that they have makeup.
No. I mean, often, in China, it was um, a university. I was still paid, and it was good fee, etc. But it was more like a university, and it was all very low key. In Dubai, it's a big international um, exhibition, big
Mm-hmm.
AI summit, and that
Yeah.
was interesting too because we were giving away to the first 20 people copies of my book when it first came out, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people scrabbling to get the first copy of the book, and again that felt great too. um, but yeah, into different cultures, and always someone hosting and looking after you and making you
Well, thank you so much for making the time to do this for me today.
pleasure. My pleasure.
So to start off with, I really am curious, what is your first and foremost passion? Because you've dabbled everywhere.
Oh wow, that's a really good question. I love people and culture and international travel. So I love meeting new people. I'm a linguist. I did French and German at university for my
Okay.
first degree. So I love to meet new people and to keep learning all the time. And COVID is restricted. I feel like a bird with its wings clipped. But I can't wait to sort of get back out there and get travel around the world and meet more people again and keep learning and sampling new foods and new
Have you
cultures.
ever like frozen on stage, like when you started speaking? Have you ever had a mishap and how did you overcome it?
I haven't frozen on stage, but I have had, and it was in Helsinki, a really, really bad flu type cold thing, and I just couldn't speak. My voice went, and I was trying to, I'd gone to the effort of going there and I was ready. And
Yeah.
so I just had to stop for a few minutes, have a cough sweet, have some water. And my voice was croaky, but it kind of came back enough to
Okay.
continue. But I haven't frozen. No, I haven't.
Or
I
ever
get
tripped or anything?
no,
Any
thankfully, I would die. I would die of embarrassment if that happened. um, no, I mean, I always prepare, but nothing major. Touch wood, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. It's never really gone that badly wrong so far.
Okay, that's good. I wanted to know, like, many speakers have something that's special to them. Like some people are really good storytellers, or some people are really authentic. How would you explain yourself? What's your thing
People
special?
always say energy and authenticity.
Mhm.
I'm not a comedian, I'm not there to make people laugh. That's not sort of something I'm good at or choose to do. But I want to give them an honest piece of me, my
Mhm.
real authentic advice. And it will always be about them as well. I will always try to bring them in and make them feel part of it. So that authenticity and sort of tailoring it to my audience will always be really, really important as well. Yeah, and energy. I try to sort of bring passion and energy and keep people awake and keep people engaged and not I think voice, the tone of your voice, the energy in your voice is really, really important.
Okay, so
'Cause
is that
I lose my voice quite a bit and I get sore throats quite a bit. I'm a singer, so I'm learning to control it better. I've come late into being in a band. And so as I've been practicing singing and having singing lessons, I'm getting even better at my speaking because I'm still giving it the energy, but I'm using my voice better.
yeah, my boss Andre says that singing gives a lot of positives to being a public speaker, and he says that he sometimes sings his speeches beforehand to give the variety or the tone. Like, have you ever tried that?
No, I haven't because I don't rehearse them in that way.
Okay.
They're not scripted.
Yeah.
Got if I've got slides, I'm speaking around that. I know what I'm going to talk about, and I've got an opening and an ending and a bit in the middle. But that's why I like it to be very from the heart and sort of free.
Yeah.
In the way that you're asking me in a very free way. Some people are just scripted, and you can see them like a newsreader reading out. And I think it's very easy for people to switch off. Whereas I
Mhm.
can kind of, get people in the moment and pick on them and try and get them engaged. But again, I didn't do that in Helsinki because I know, the Finnish people are very private and
Yeah.
professional, and of course they'll sit together naked in the sauna. That's a different matter. But but as a kind of group of professionals, you wouldn't sort of pick on people. So again, that's back to knowing your audience and
Mhm.
tailoring things to their needs.
What do you think is the biggest flaw with public speaking today? Is there a flaw or something that needs to change?
Yeah. Oh, it's a hard question actually. There's so much content out there. I think it's being a little bit original and not just paraphrasing what everybody else is saying, but finding, because people can listen to podcasts, listen to other speakers on TEDx. They're being flooded with information, so I think it's a bit of a lack of originality sometimes. And I
Hmm.
think that's where my book has helped, because I've got my own IP. So I think it's and I'm not a big fan of the big gimmicks.
Like,
I know that, well, going on with a shopping bag and having all kinds of, I think
uh,
there is an element to showmanship.
okay.
And I think it's important to have a little bit of drama,
Yes.
whether it's drawing on the board, like Simon Sinek did and things. So I think that's can be important.
Hmm.
But I think people aren't going to hear a keynote to go to the circus.
Yeah.
So I think it can get too theatrical. I've seen some where actually I think, that isn't what I came for. I didn't really want to have a show, a spectacle. I wanted to hear and learn from you. So I
Yeah.
think originality and just kind of like keeping the theatre interesting enough, but that not becoming the dominant part of it is what I would say.
Yeah. I understand that. Do you think that you have evolved as a speaker over all your years?
Yeah, most definitely. Most
Most
definitely.
definitely.
It's learning how to, again, engage the audience more. Confidence, I think you keep improving as you get more confident,
Hmm.
or you might reflect on something you did and think, I could have done that better. I
Yeah.
could have prepared a bit better, or I could have been a bit more open and given of myself a little bit more. Or maybe, yeah, absolutely you do, as a trainer and as a speaker, most definitely. And I think the content, where I'm good, is that I'm evolving my thinking all the time.
Hmm.
I've not kind of got something, even with the book, that is a set cookie cutter cut and paste. I don't do that. I every time I do a speech and every time I run a training session, that morning I'm looking at the news, I'm tuned in to the latest. I'm not drawing just on the case studies and anecdotes from a book.
Yeah.
It's happening every day.
Hmm.
AI has been reshaped by COVID. There's news this morning of how airlines are using it, all kinds of things. So I think you can make a mistake to be in your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and then not, and my, I think one of the key things is I will put myself out of it. It's uncomfortable,
Hmm.
because you want to do things the way you've been doing them because they work, but they might not work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, it's keeping evolving all the time. And being on a journey of continuous learning, I keep saying it, it's such an important message for everyone. School children, my daughter's just graduated. I work with a lot of young people in school, 16, 17. They've got to do it too, not just
Yeah.
people my age.
And do you ever get nervous anymore when you go on stage?
I do. Yeah, I do get really nervous. Not nervous to the point where it stops me performing, but
Mhm.
those butterflies, that kind of, oh, but yeah, that's adrenaline, isn't it? And that
Yeah.
helps you perform. So yeah, I do. I do. And the day you stop, I think it's a bit worrying because you've become complacent then.
Yeah, I agree. Well, my last question for you is what would your piece of advice be for those aspiring to become public speakers?
Good question. You need people to see you at work, even before you are the finished article. And so I have given up over the years a lot of free time. So in the early days, I was uh, a weekly social media surgery on BBC, and I know that's auditory, no
Hmm.
visual, but we did webcams of it. That led to lots of unpaid speaking. So you've got to
Yeah.
put yourself out there. You've got to stand for something. You've got to have a brand. You've got to, be good at marketing. And that might mean you have to pay for advice. So you've
Hmm.
got to be seen and heard. You've got to have some strong messages and some IP, or something original. Certainly you give some collection to it. I think they're the main things. And
Okay.
enjoy it. Life's short. You've got to enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Silly. Nice to see you.